the South African government says they are working hard on the ground to rescue citizens that are part of the Global Sumud Flotilla campaign, which is heading to Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. Now, the grandson of former President Nelson Mandela, Mandla, has released a video that he has been abducted by the Israeli state. Now, the government has condemned the latest developments. For more on this now, we're joined by SABC News correspondent Blake Sifton for developments on this. So, Blake, this is not the first time something like this has happened. First the drone strike, then the interception. Let's start with clarity on what we know about this interception so far.
Good morning. That's right. This flotilla has been harassed at regular intervals throughout its journey to Gaza. In terms of the interception, it began late last night. We understand now that at least 21 of the 44 boats of the flotilla have been intercepted and boarded by the Israeli Navy. That leaves still at least 23 boats, and organizers say they will continue to try to make their way to Gaza, although of course they will almost certainly be intercepted. And I should note that interceptions are essentially happening as we're speaking. They've carried on into the morning. Now, in videos we've seen, Israeli naval commandos boarded boats, activists on board live streamed this activity up until the point the commandos approached them and they threw their phones then into the sea. We understand the Israeli Navy used water cannons against several boats, and organizers say at least one boat was rammed. However, there have been no reports of injuries. Hundreds of activists on board the boats that have been seized have been arrested, they've been detained, and they are currently being taken by Israeli Navy ships to the port of Ashdod, where they are expected to be processed and eventually deported, possibly as early as tonight. Of course, this flotilla involved some 500 activists, including Greta Thunberg, Mandla, as you mentioned, members of parliament from Europe, lawyers, journalists, and others. And they were attempting to deliver humanitarian aid, but also challenge Israel's maritime blockade of Gaza that has been in place since 2009. And while other flotillas in the past have been intercepted and stopped, this was by far the largest flotilla ever assembled, and it presented a unique challenge for the Israeli military.
On that, Blake, how many flotillas have been intercepted? Because now we're also seeing a statement that also came in, presumed, of course, to be from one of the delegates on the flotilla, which reads as follows: "Dear comrades, confirming that the boats of the following delegates have been intercepted and the delegates have been detained are, of course, Nkosizwe Livumila Mandela, as you've just said there, Zugisa Vani, we have Riaz Mullah, and also they are waiting information on Zahira Soma as well as Fatima Hendricks, as the lawyers are on standby to receive them at the Ashdod harbor." Can you expand further on this for us?
At this stage, it's unclear how many boats now have been intercepted. We understand at least 21, but it's possible more have been intercepted, and we just haven't heard about it yet because this really is a developing situation and happening as we speak. In terms of previous flotillas, they were intercepted as recently as June and July by the Israeli Navy. Those were, of course, much smaller than this flotilla, and they were actually intercepted further out off the coast of Gaza than this one. This one was intercepted at some 70 nautical miles from Gaza, and we understand that the other boats that haven't yet been intercepted are as close as 45 nautical miles from Gaza. In May, another boat of a flotilla was damaged by an explosion off the coast of Malta. It never actually reached anywhere near the coast of Gaza. There's been other flotillas in the past before that, most notably and infamously, I should say, of course, is the Mavi Marmara, the Turkish flotilla in 2010 that was boarded by Israeli commandos who descended from helicopters and ended up shooting and killing some 10 Turkish activists. But thankfully, in this instance, in this interception, there's been no reports of injuries, let alone deaths.
And Blake, the flotilla was carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza. What's the latest on the cargo itself? Was it seized, destroyed, or is it still in limbo?
That is a very good question. The Israeli government had said to the activists when they're on their way, you can leave the aid in Cyprus, you can bring the aid to the port of Ashdod, you can divert from the coast of Gaza, and we will deliver it to Gaza for you. The flotilla organizers disputed that. They said they didn't believe it. They said it wouldn't make its way to Gaza. Also,
Okay, we're going to have to cut out of that conversation there with Blake Sifton. I will endeavor to get him back on the line. We apologize for that sound quality there, because that means now you cannot enjoy the full benefit of that report. Blake, so hopefully second time lucky. Let's hear where the cargo is now. Do we know its whereabouts?
So the question of what will happen to this humanitarian aid that the flotilla was trying to bring to Gaza is going to be very interesting. Now, the Israeli government had told the flotilla organizers while they were on their way to Gaza, they could drop their aid in Cyprus, they could bring it to a port in Israel, but they wouldn't let them, of course, breach the coast of Gaza. Now, the organizers refused to do this. They didn't believe that the Israeli government would honor their word. European governments that had sent naval ships to accompany the flotilla in case of an emergency, like Greece, Spain, and Italy, they all said the same. They said, give your aid to the Latin Patriarchy of Jerusalem to deliver. So that hasn't happened. The aid is still on the boats. We understood, however, before this interception that some of these flotilla boats, perhaps the larger ones, would be towed to the port of Ashdod by the Israeli Navy, and the smaller boats, the Israeli Navy might actually sink at sea. So it remains to be seen whether boats with aid will be sunk to the bottom of the Mediterranean, whether they'll be towed with their aid to the port of Ashdod, and if they are, whether that aid will be taken to Gaza. But we also need to remember that when it comes to a lack of humanitarian aid reaching the people of Gaza, it's not for a lack of aid available. It's for these bottlenecks that the UN has said has prevented them from collecting and distributing aid from the border between Gaza and Israel. So even if this aid is taken to Ashdod, does make its way to the border with Gaza, it could be weeks or longer before it actually makes its way into Gaza.
And finally, what's the sense that you are getting on the ground from the international community? Has there been strong condemnation or just silence?
There's been quite strong condemnation. Turkey's foreign ministry called this interception an act of terrorism. The largest union in Italy has declared a general strike tomorrow, Friday, in solidarity with the flotilla. We also heard on Wednesday night from the president of Colombia. He said that if Israel intercepted this flotilla, that he would break off his country's free trade agreement with Israel, as well as expel Israeli diplomats. And Brazil's foreign ministry said that it deplores the Israeli government's military action, which violates rights and endangers the well-being of peaceful protesters.
Blake Sifton is SABC News correspondent, watching developments for us there with his pulse firmly on this developing story. Thanks ever so much for that update.